Greetings and salutations, 'tis I, GodOfKnockers, and today we're going to knock out a quick primer about anti-cheats. This is mainly to clear up a very popular misconception about how anti-cheats work, because there is a lot of confusion about them and a lot of misinformation spread forth on the internet. This is to serve as one piece of misinformation that needs to be addressed. So this is a comment or mainly a review for the game League of Maidens, which uses Denuvo's anti-cheat. And this is also going to serve as a primer to a much larger video that I'm going to be making. I have blocked out the username of the person who left this here, along with people who may also play this game and are on my friends list, because, they're not part of this discussion, so don't worry about that. But there's some things we do need to clear up. This is a quick primer, so it shouldn't take you long. Now, the report starts as follows. This product uses a kernel-level anti-cheat. There's nothing wrong with that. Kernel-level anti-cheats are the most invasive anti-cheats on the market, able to modify the files on your computer in any way it wants in order to prevent you from modifying the game's files. I implore you to turn away for your computer's sake. This is demonstrably false. Kernel-level anti-cheats are not exe programs that run in the background. You have to make calls to them. They don't invade anything. They don't examine your system, and they don't check your system for anything. What they do is that the program that is assigned to the anti-cheat gives information and makes function calls directly to the anti-cheat. And the anti-cheat determines if those functions are being done correctly or if there's something up. It's like, hey, can you inspect this and see if there's anything on here? If this file is okay, if this program that's running in the background is fine. If that program is in the background is running fine and isn't trying to mess with anything, then it will leave that program alone. But if it finds something, it will flag the account, connects to the game server and say, hey, this account is cheating, flag it please for this, and then it blocks the person from playing. It's not designed to modify anything on your computer. It does not modify files that are already on your machine. No anti-cheat does that, and it's actually illegal and against a lot of antitrust laws. So that's one misconception. They are also not invasive because the program that the anti-cheat is assigned to receives functions and returns values. They don't rewrite anything. If the function says, hey, is this person cheating? And it sends back a reply that says, yes, they are, it shuts down the gameplay, prevents that user from playing, and puts a mark on the account that's attached to the game server. It does not modify your files in any way, shape, or form. This next line is where a lot of people get it horribly wrong when it comes to the core. The kernel is the core of your operating system, and it runs at the lowest level possible. Essentially, it's a computer program and has complete control over your system. Many programs on your computer depend on the kernel, so playing a video game with kernel-level anti-cheats can prevent you from using other applications, such as overclocking tools, temperature monitors, and fan controllers, not just cheating software. This is also false. A lot of programs are marked as safe by your anti-cheat because they've been told, hey, this is a program that we are looking at and it does this. As long as that program doesn't interfere with the memory that is in the that's in your system, like, hey, this is how much I'm taking up in memory. I'm going to be using this memory for my game and such. As long as there's nothing interfering with that, or there are no programs that are trying to change values anywhere in that section of memory that the game is occupying, it's fine. I actually have a lot of tools on my computer. I actually have another anti-cheat for another game running on my computer. They're designed to detect programs that have been flagged as malicious, that have been flagged and are commonly known for hacking and cheating in games. Fan controllers are not an issue because a fan controller just determines the speed of your fan. It doesn't do anything for your game. And I actually have fan controller software on my computer. I use MSI Afterburner, which is deemed 100% safe. So all of this is incorrect. The big problem here is that when they say the kernel is the core of the operating system and runs at the lowest level possible, that is wrong. That's incredibly backwards. A lot of people look at it as the higher the number, the more secure, but that's not the case. Think of it as like the DEFCON system. The higher the number, the safer everything is, whereas the lower the number, we're at war. Or on the verge of it. DEFCON 5 means peacetime, DEFCON 1 means we're at war. The same thing goes with the kernel level here. It's known as protection rings. and it's right here as you can see. The lower the number, the more secure it is. Least privilege is the higher the number, which is where exe programs sit. Your applications sit here, whereas the most privilege is here at the kernel. So it's not as lowest level possible, it's highest. Ring 0 is the highest because it's the core. Ring 3, here in this example that you see, is the lowest. Your applications sit here. Device drivers sit here on levels ring 2 and ring 1. Ring 0 is the kernel and where kernel software is. Okay? So when we have a program that's being malicious, it's actually running on the least privileged. Not the most, the least. And another thing I'd like to point out, applications on the least privileged ring cannot directly communicate with the kernel. As a matter of fact, there are no active files. There are no active applications in the Windows kernel. There are no exe files that you can run from the kernel. None whatsoever. It runs off of a hierarchy, a predetermined set of tables that have the various functions that the kernel can use. So if an application on ring 3 wants to make a request that the kernel has to handle, it has to go through 2 other rings, which then finally at the last ring communicate with the kernel to do this thing. This kernel has its own table, a list of functions that it knows it can safely perform without causing any problems or any type of things to happen. If the command that's being sent to the kernel, if the request is being sent in, and it says do this thing, and it's on that list, the kernel will execute it. If it's not on the list, the kernel won't do anything. Nothing will happen. Another thing that you have to understand is that malware users, not malware users, malware creators, i.e. hackers and cheaters, they don't need kernel access. Most of your applications, and malware in this case, have what's known as an application payload. They maliciously try to install client software that has remote access to your machine undetected and unencumbered. It can log keystrokes such as your username and password. It can monitor and watch what you are typing and where sites you are going and what have you. And all of this runs on the least privilege band, ring number 3. See, the thing is that if you have direct access to the kernel, you have to be careful what commands you can execute. Kernel level access, if you're not careful and don't know what you are doing, you'll just crash the computer. That's why a lot of device drivers on ring 1 and 2 have to be vetted. And in this case, because we're talking about Microsoft, which is where most games sit anyways, these drivers have to be digitally signed, which means that Microsoft has to look at the code, scan it with a fine-tooth comb, see if there's any problems or if this causes any type of flaws or vulnerabilities into the system. If it doesn't cause any vulnerabilities, we're good to go. You can go ahead and use that, not a problem. However, if there are flaws or exploits or weaknesses, then it's not going to fly. It won't get digitally signed. And most unsigned drivers get handled through other device drivers here on the ring. So applications don't have a direct access to the Windows kernel. It's like trying to get permission from a bureaucracy. Nothing actually gets written or anything, and the anti-cheat can't write anything to files. It just receives a call. It picks up the phone and say, hey, your pizzas are ready, come pick them up. That kind of thing. Nothing actually gets written to anything. And a lot of hackers don't need to access that. If anything, hackers need your computer to remain intact. So they need device drivers and the kernel to remain intact at all times. At all times. Because once they take over your system, they'll have a perfectly good operating system to work with. So they can't really attack the kernel. They can try to defect the device drivers, but there's no need for that. If they can get in and access stuff on ring 3, then they can just carry on and do what they need to do. So always remember, ring 0 is the most privileged and thus the most secure. Ring 3 is not. The kernel does not sit on ring 3. It sits on ring 0. And again, no exe programs, i.e. applications, run in the kernel. With that said, let's carry on to the next spot here. But the worst part is that if a hacker gets onto your computer and notices you have a kernel-level anti-cheat software installed on your computer, they can take advantage of that to wreak absolute havoc on your computer. No, they cannot. Just as with the kernel, the anti-cheat software that runs on your machine is a one-way. It's a function. It too has its own tables of commands that can be activated and executed. Those commands cannot exploit your machine. You can't use a kernel level driver for another product to access the Windows kernel. That's not how it works, because nothing gets written. They don't need to use that. If they see an anti-cheat level, if they see a kernel level anti-cheat software inside your computer, they're not going to give a shit. They don't care. They don't need to do that. Because if they already have access to your machine and they can access it remotely, they don't need anything else. Malware sits on the lowest level, the ring 3, the outer level. All it has to do is infect a program there. All it has to do is have someone like, hey, let's download this PDF. Wow, it's so large. Or just download malicious software that looks very suspicious and is not official software from an official place. All they have to do is have you run that. They download their payload behind the scenes. And as long as it's not tripping anything or tripping any indications, or you have a machine that doesn't have any type of antivirus or anti-malware packages enabled, they can simply download it, install it, and they can just watch what you do. They don't need to have access to the kernel. They need the kernel to be intact so they can do what they need to do with your machine. This is how computers get taken over. They don't need to hack the kernel. It's a waste of time. They don't need to see that. They see that, for example, I have Valorant on my computer. I have an anti-cheat, which is a Vanguard, right? In addition to this, League of Legends uses the Nouveau anti-cheat. I also play Fortnite, which has 2 anti-cheats, Easy and Battle Eye, right? There's a whole bunch of anti-cheats on my computer. If a hacker sees this, it's like, oh, he plays this game, cool. Oh, they play that game, excellent. What's this game? Oh, that looks interesting. They're not going to give a shit. They don't care. They're going to wreak absolute havoc on your machine, no matter what anti-cheat you have on it, because it doesn't matter. They don't need to do anything like that. They don't need to mess with it. That's why it's important to have antivirus or an anti-malware system software on your system. That's why it's important to not install software that can make your system vulnerable. They don't need to access the kernel. They just need to access your files and your password and your username and all that other shit. That's all they need to do. Kernel needs to stay intact. The last part, if the game developers are reading this, then I implore you to remove this anti-cheat software from your game. Not only is it a huge risk for the user, but it's also illegal in some countries. That is a bold-faced lie. There is no country in any part of the world. There is no government in any part of the world. There is nothing in any part of the world that says that using an anti-cheat is illegal. There is no law of any kind. There is no doctrine. There is no talk or debate of illegalizing anti-cheats. None whatsoever. And the problem is that people will read this and they will instantly and automatically assume this is correct. This is factual. This is why I hate anti-cheats. They're going to do terrible things to my system. Oh no, I must spread the word. And they fall for this every time because if you'll notice up here, let me see if I can highlight it. 160 people found this review helpful. So those 160 people are taking what they've read from here and they're going to send it to other users who are going to read it and so on and so forth. This is how misinformation works. Anti-cheats are not going to destroy your system. They're not designed to. The whole core and goal of an anti-cheat is to make sure that cheaters don't cheat in the games that developers make, including League of Legends. I've been playing League of Legends since it came out in 2021. It's now April 16th, 2025. It's been 4 years. The anti-cheat, I think, came out in 2022, 2023, something like that. I've been playing this game the whole time. Never had my system hacked. Never had my system compromised. Never had anything weird happen to it. The only thing that was weird was when Windows decided to have that not so fresh feeling, which is Windows. It's been like that since Windows XP. It's ridiculous. But in conclusion, if you're running around thinking that anti-cheats are a terrible thing to have on your computer, they're only terrible to people who want to cheat. Now this is going to serve as a primer, this video, for an even larger video that's going to talk about anti-cheats in a more detailed fashion. It is not going to talk about anything illegal. It is not going to talk about anything that you shouldn't be doing with your system. all right, is going to be a simple primer because a lot of people have a lot of misinformation about anti-cheats. I'm going to take the mantle and go ahead and show you that's not the case. I would like to thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. You guys take care and have a good one.